Imagine a life where you no longer chase the gaze of others, no longer feel exhausted by the need for approval or validation. A life where your peace is not disturbed by external noise, nor shaken by changing opinions. You wake up each morning not in the chaos of anxiety and urgency, but in stillness, where a calm inner voice gently calls your name. In that space, you are alone but never lonely. You begin to let go of what no longer serves your inner life, the expectations, the burdens, the old roles you have been carrying. When you no longer need to prove yourself or run away, the mind slowly settles. And within that stillness, clarity begins to arise, inner strength gradually returns, and the truth of who you are softly awakens. The Buddha taught that true transformation does not begin from the outside, but is born in solitude, when the soul finally has enough space to breathe. This is the beginning of a journey called 12 Buddhist Principles to rebuild yourself alone. Principle 1. Letting go of the illusion of control. From the stillness introduced at the beginning, we now step deeper into the root of suffering that almost everyone has experienced. That root is the desire to control. Human beings often believe that if they can control enough, life will feel safer. We try to control other people, their words, their actions, even how they think and feel about us. We also want to control outcomes, wanting everything to happen at the right time, according to the right plan, exactly as we have imagined in our minds. But the truth that everyone must face sooner or later is that life does not operate according to anyone's personal wishes. Everything is constantly changing without notice. People are imperfect, emotions rise and fall unpredictably, and circumstances can shift in an entirely different direction in a single moment. When we try to cling to certainty in a world that is inherently impermanent, tension and disappointment inevitably arise. According to the teachings of the Buddha, suffering does not come from circumstances themselves, but from our attachment to the expectation that things must go the way we want. We suffer not because of loss, but because we hold too tightly. We feel exhausted not because life is difficult, but because we are constantly fighting against the reality that is unfolding. When we begin to let go of the illusion of control, an important transformation occurs. We learn to live with what is, rather than what we demand it should be. We stop trying to fix others to fit our expectations, and we stop forcing life to follow the path we prefer. The energy that was once used to control and resist returns to the only place we truly have power: our inner response. When we change the way we respond, even if circumstances have not yet changed, they already feel lighter. When the mind resists less, life naturally feels more open. True strength does not lie in controlling life, but in the ability to meet it with awareness, gentleness, and wisdom. And from this foundation, the journey of rebuilding yourself in solitude truly begins. Principle 2. Sitting with yourself, not with distraction. After letting go of the illusion of control, we begin to notice another habit that quietly dominates modern life. It is the habit of escaping ourselves through distraction. The moment discomfort appears, a passing sadness, or even a gentle sense of loneliness, the hand immediately reaches for the phone. Music is turned on, a video begins to play, a conversation is prolonged, all to fill the empty space. Slowly, we become accustomed to never being alone with our own mind, not even for a few short minutes. Over time, this constant distraction creates a deep consequence. We begin to fear silence, to fear moments when there is nothing to hold on to. Sitting still becomes uncomfortable. Doing nothing starts to feel threatening. And very quietly, we become strangers to our own inner world. We know many things about the outside, yet remain unclear about what is happening within. In the teachings of the Buddha, transformation only truly begins when we stop running away, not by thinking more, but by returning to presence. Beneath all the noise, beneath the layers of accumulated distraction, there is always a truth waiting to be seen. There are emotions that have been buried, fears that have never been named, and a clarity that we have missed for far too long. The practice is simple, but not easy. Try sitting down without holding your phone, without turning on music, without seeking anything to distract you. At first, the silence will feel awkward. The mind will become restless, uncomfortable, even eager to escape. But instead of avoiding it, simply observe. Observe the breath, observe sensations, observe thoughts as they come and go. Gradually, an important realization emerges. You are not empty. You have simply been neglected for too long. You are not broken. You have just never been fully listened to. And it is in the moment you dare to sit with yourself that the journey of healing truly begins from within. Principle 3. Embracing pain to be reborn. Once we have learned to sit with ourselves in silence, something almost unavoidable begins to appear. That is pain. For most of us, the familiar reflex is to run away from it. We want to fix it quickly, to make the discomfort disappear as soon as possible. And we label pain as something wrong that must be removed. Yet it is precisely this way of seeing that makes suffering heavier and causes it to linger longer in our inner life. From the Buddhist perspective, pain is not an enemy, it is a messenger. It does not arrive to punish us, but to point towards something that needs to be seen, understood, and transformed. Pain is like a mirror reflecting the deeper layers of the mind, our attachments, our longings, and our unhealed wounds. It is also like a small crack in the darkness, a place where light can enter if we do not rush to cover it up. Think of the image of a seed. If the shell never cracks open, there will never be a green shoot reaching upward. The breaking is not a sign of failure, but a condition for new life to emerge. Human beings are the same. There are phases in life when we must break open, when we are forced to face loss, hurt, and confusion in order to grow into a deeper and more mature version of ourselves. Suffering carries quiet lessons within it. Heartbreak shows us what truly matters in our hearts. Failure trains us in resilience and humility. Periods of silence and loneliness force us to turn inward and meet the parts of ourselves that need healing. When we stop rushing to escape, a shift begins to happen. The question changes. It is no longer why did this happen to me, but what is this teaching me about myself? When pain is faced directly with awareness and compassion, it does not only dismantle old structures, it also quietly rebuilds us, making us steadier, deeper, and closer to our inner truth than ever before. Principle 4. Simplifying life to expand the spirit. Once pain has been embraced and faced directly, a natural need begins to arise from within. It is the need to feel lighter, not only lighter in the mind, but lighter in the way we live each day. At this point, an important question slowly becomes clear. How many things am I carrying that are not truly necessary for this journey of living? Not only material possessions, but also schedules, relationships, thoughts, and habits that drain my energy. Clutter does not exist only in our rooms. It also lives in the mind. It is found in objects we no longer use but keep out of fear of lacking. It is found in overloaded schedules that keep us constantly rushed and exhausted. It is found in the constant noise of social media that gives the mind no space to rest. And sometimes it appears as relationships that require us to strain, to perform, to endure far more than we are nourished. In the teachings of the Buddha, the root of suffering does not lie only in material things, but more deeply in desire. The desire to have more, to be noticed, to be recognized, to be seen as enough. These subtle desires quietly weigh down our lives without us realizing it. We carry too much not because we need it, but because we are afraid to let go. The practice of this principle begins with a very simple awareness. Before keeping something or pursuing something, gently ask yourself whether this truly supports your peace. Little by little, we learn to choose depth over quantity. Fewer relationships, but more genuine ones. Fewer activities, but more meaningful ones. Less noise, so we can clearly hear the inner voice. When life is simplified, the spirit naturally expands. We gain more space to breathe, more time to reflect, and more energy to grow in a slow yet steady way. And from this lightness, the path back to our natural ease becomes clearer and clearer. Principle 5. Becoming the observer, not the reactor. When life has become lighter through simplification, we begin to notice a more subtle challenge living deep within us. It is the way we react to what touches us each day. A single word, a glance, an unexpected memory can trigger anger, anxiety, or sadness. Very often, the reaction happens so quickly that we do not even realize we are being pulled away. We say things we later regret. We act from emotion and then pay the price with lingering unease. According to the teachings of the Buddha, the root of emotional freedom begins with an essential recognition. We are not the emotions that arise. We are not the stream of thoughts moving through the mind. All of these are phenomena that come and go. Our deeper nature is the one who sees, who knows, who observes them. When this is realized, a new inner space opens. The practice of this principle does not ask us to eliminate emotions. It invites us to meet them with awareness. Observe emotions as clouds moving across the sky. Clouds may be dark or bright, but the sky itself remains unharmed. When anger appears, instead of letting it drive action, we gently name it and say, "Anger's here." When fear arises, we quietly acknowledge fear is present. No judgment, no analysis, just clear seeing. In that moment, the breath becomes an anchor. One deep breath allows body and mind to slow down. A single pause before acting creates a precious gap. That gap between stimulus and response is where freedom begins to form. In that space, we are no longer forced to react according to old habits. We have a choice. When we choose observation over reaction, inner strength is gradually cultivated. The strongest person is not the one who reacts the fastest or speaks the loudest. It is the one who is calm enough not to be dragged by emotion and clear enough to choose peace instead of chaos. From this mastery, the mind slowly enters a deeper state of freedom and stability. Principle 6. Letting go of the old self that no longer fits. When we have learned to observe emotions instead of being carried away by them, a deeper layer of transformation begins to reveal itself. This layer is our relationship with the image we hold of ourselves. Each person carries a silent story about who they are. I am not good enough. I always fail. I am unworthy of love. These images do not appear by accident. They are formed through moments of criticism, comparison, abandonment, or wounds that were never given the chance to heal. Over time, these stories solidify into an identity. We live, react, and make choices based on a self that was built from pain. We avoid opportunities because we fear failure. We hesitate to move forward because we believe we are not enough. And eventually, we mistake this constructed identity for our true self. In Buddhist teachings, the Buddha points to a profound truth. There is no fixed or permanent self. A human being is not a closed entity, but a living process in constant movement. We change through awareness, through experience, and through how we cultivate the mind. This understanding opens a great door. If the self is not fixed, then it can be transformed. Letting go of the old self does not mean hating it or rejecting it. That version of you had a reason to exist. It helped you survive difficult times. It protected you when you did not yet feel safe. But there comes a moment when holding on to it prevents further growth. Letting go here is an act of gratitude and permission. Thank you for helping me survive, and now I allow myself to move into a new chapter. The practice begins with very small steps. Stop repeating self-diminishing stories in the mind. When an old thought appears, simply recognize it as an old habit, not an absolute truth. At the same time, begin to act as the version of yourself you wish to become. Not through dramatic changes, but through small choices, small acts of kindness toward yourself, small moments of courage to speak differently and choose differently. When we release a self built on wounds, a new inner space opens. In that space, the emerging self is no longer rooted in fear, but nourished by wisdom, understanding, and compassion. From here, true freedom begins to take shape. Not to become greater than others, but to return to the deepest potential of who you truly are. Principle 7. Learning the art of walking alone. As the old self is gradually released, we begin to enter a very special stage of the healing journey. This stage is facing the experience of walking alone. For many people, this experience is tied to memories of abandonment, of not being truly understood, of having no one by their side when they needed support the most. Loneliness therefore becomes a deep-seated fear. We cling to relationships and to the presence of others, simply to avoid being alone with ourselves. Yet in the Buddhist perspective, solitude is not something negative. On the contrary, it is a sacred space. It is precisely in being alone, free from the distractions of others' gazes and expectations, that we have the clearest opportunity to meet ourselves. When we no longer have to perform, no longer need to be understood or approved of, inner truth begins to reveal itself honestly. The modern world constantly encourages us to stay connected. Messages, social media, and endless conversations follow one another without pause. But when external connection is not accompanied by inner awareness, the mind easily falls into chaos. We know many people, yet remain unfamiliar with ourselves. We speak a great deal, yet rarely listen to the deeper voice within. The art of walking alone is not isolation. It is a conscious choice. In that space, there is no audience to please, no applause to confirm worth, and no one to lead the way for us. There is only the full presence of oneself. We learn to show up for our own soul, not out of fear of being left behind. When we have the courage to be alone, we begin to build a solid foundation from within. We no longer search for external support to remain standing. Walking alone then ceases to be a sign of loneliness and becomes an expression of inner strength. It is the moment when we are strong enough to stand on our own feet and deep enough to accompany ourselves through every stage of life. Principle 8. Choosing mindfulness over multitasking. When we are steady enough to walk alone without fear, the next step of the journey is learning how to truly live in each moment. One of the greatest challenges of modern life is the habit of multitasking. We eat while scrolling on our phones. We listen to others while already preparing our reply. We walk in the present, yet the mind wanders into the past or worries about the future. Everything happens at once, yet nothing is fully lived. The consequences of this way of living are subtle but profound. Life becomes fragmented into scattered pieces. Even after a full day of busyness, we still feel empty. Energy is dispersed, and the nervous system remains in a state of mild but constant tension. We are not truly resting, and we are not truly present. Gradually, joy becomes faint, even though everything around us appears complete. In the teachings of the Buddha, mindfulness is not something lofty or distant. It is the art of being fully present with what is happening. When eating, simply know that you are eating. When listening, simply listen. When walking, feel the contact of your feet with the ground. Even drinking a cup of tea can become a sacred ritual when we feel the warmth in our hands. Notice the fragrance rising and sense each sip moving down the throat. When mindfulness is brought into the most ordinary activities, a gentle yet deep shift begins to unfold. The nervous system gradually calms. The mind becomes less foggy and less driven by unnecessary thoughts. We begin to realize that life is not happening at some point in the future. It is not located in what we are waiting for. Life is happening right now, in this very moment. When we stop chasing more, faster, and farther, we are given the chance to live more deeply within a single moment. And it is this depth that brings a sense of fullness that no amount of busyness can ever replace. Principle 9. Accepting the present and changing what can be changed. After learning to live mindfully in each moment, we begin to see our relationship with reality more clearly. A familiar cycle of suffering gradually reveals itself. We wish things had been different. We replay old mistakes in the mind, analyzing, blaming, and tormenting ourselves. Even as time moves forward, the mind remains trapped in the past. It is this resistance to reality that causes suffering to last longer than necessary. According to the teachings of the Buddha, no one can heal by fighting against what has already happened or what is currently unfolding. When the mind continually denies reality, energy is consumed by resistance. Wisdom appears only when we are calm enough to look directly at our circumstances, without exaggerating them and without denying them. The middle way taught by the Buddha is a balance between acceptance, action, and clear discernment. Acceptance does not mean surrender. It does not mean tolerating injustice or remaining in harmful environments. Acceptance here means acknowledging that some things have already happened and cannot be changed. The past has passed. What remains is the choice of how we move forward. When we stop spending energy resisting what cannot be changed, we finally have enough strength to change what is still within our reach. The practice of this principle begins with a simple yet profound question. Can I change this? If the answer is yes, then act with clarity, not impulsively and not from anger. Let action be guided by wisdom and compassion for yourself and for others. If the answer is no, then it is time to let go. Let go through the breath. Let go through trust and the understanding that life unfolds according to laws greater than personal preference. When we know when to act and when to release, the inner world gradually becomes more stable. Peace is not a life without problems. Peace is the presence of inner clarity and steadiness, even while problems still exist. And it is this clarity that allows us to move forward gently and in the right direction. Principle 10. Choosing compassion even for yourself. After learning to accept the present and act with clarity, we reach a deeper foundation of healing. This foundation is how we treat ourselves in silence. Human beings are often very gentle with others. We forgive easily, empathize easily, and quickly find reasons to understand others when they make mistakes. Yet when we turn inward, the inner voice becomes strangely harsh. We judge, criticize, and deny ourselves the right to fail. The consequences of lacking self-compassion unfold quietly but persistently. We replay our mistakes in the mind like a recording that never stops. We insult ourselves in silence without anyone else saying a word. Gradually, we create a toxic inner environment where every effort is dismissed before it has a chance to grow. In such a space, healing and growth become extremely difficult. According to the teachings of the Buddha, compassion is not meant only for others. Compassion must begin where it is born, in one's own heart. If we cannot treat ourselves with kindness, the compassion we offer the outer world will soon run dry. Self-compassion does not make us weak. On the contrary, it creates inner safety, allowing us to look honestly at our unfinished parts without running away. The practice of this principle begins with the language we use with ourselves. When you make a mistake, try speaking as you would to someone you love. It is okay, you are learning. You are still worthy of respect and love. Instead of playing the role of the judge, try becoming the one who supports. See yourself as a child learning to walk. There are stumbles and awkward steps, yet each one is part of growing. When we stop fighting ourselves, a new inner space opens. That space allows us to breathe more deeply, to truly learn, and to change in a sustainable way. Transformation is not built through the harsh whip of self-judgment, but nurtured through understanding and care. From this foundation of compassion, the journey of inner renewal becomes healthier and longer lasting. Principle 11. Breaking the cycle by breaking the thought. Once compassion toward yourself has been established, you enter the deepest layer of transformation. This is where all lasting change truly begins. Not in circumstances, but in the mind. Each day, countless thoughts pass through your awareness. Most of them are harmless, coming and going like a gentle breeze. But there are also thoughts that repeat quietly, slowly eroding your confidence and life energy. I am not good enough. I always fail. I will never change. These statements sound so familiar that we begin to mistake them for truth. According to the teachings of the Buddha, the reality we live in is not shaped only by what happens outside of us, but powerfully formed by the thoughts we believe and repeat each day. A passing thought has little power, but a thought that is believed, repeated, and fueled by emotion gradually becomes a deep mental track. And then we live, react, and choose as if that track were the only road available. Thoughts are not the essence of who we are. They are habits, patterns, the result of repetition over time. Like a dirt path created because so many people have walked the same way. And what matters most is this: anything that has been formed can also be transformed. If a pattern has been programmed, it can be reprogrammed through awareness and patience. The first step of change is recognition. When a negative thought appears, instead of being immediately pulled into it, you pause. Just pause. No need to analyze. No need to fight it. You simply acknowledge that a thought is present. This moment of stopping is crucial because it breaks automatic behavior. You no longer react as you used to. You begin to clearly see what is happening in the mind. The second step is questioning. Not to argue, but to illuminate. You gently ask the thought, is this really true? Is it useful? Does it lead me toward the person I want to become? Many thoughts, when looked at directly, reveal their own inaccuracy. You begin to see that they are often born from fear, old memories, or unhealed experiences, rather than from complete truth. The third step is replacement. Replacement does not mean forcing yourself to be positive. It means choosing a more honest and healthy perspective. When the thought, "I always ruin everything," appears, you can replace it with something that reflects reality more accurately. "I have made mistakes, but I am learning and growing." When the mind says, "I never change," you remind yourself that you have changed a great deal already, even if you do not see it all yet. These replacements are not self-deception. They open a new path in awareness. This understanding aligns not only with Buddhist teachings, but also with modern science. The brain has the ability to change its structure through repetition, a process known as neuroplasticity. Each time you choose a different thought, a new neural connection is formed. At first, the new path feels faint and difficult to follow. But if you continue choosing it with consistency, it gradually becomes clearer and stronger. Meditation plays a central role in this process. Meditation is not about emptying the mind. It helps you see the noise within it. When you sit still and observe, you begin to notice that thoughts continuously arise and pass away. You do not have to believe everything that appears. This clear seeing gives you choice. You are no longer a victim of your thoughts. You become their guide. Over time, the old cycle loses its power. The thoughts that once drained you no longer appear as often. And even when they do, you no longer believe them blindly. You see them, understand where they come from, and choose a different response. This is the inner freedom the Buddha pointed to. Not controlling thoughts, but not being controlled by them. Healing does not begin with a new job, a new relationship, or a new place. Those changes may bring temporary relief, but the root remains within. True healing begins with a new thought, chosen with awareness, nurtured with patience, and strengthened through daily practice. When thinking changes, the path of life naturally changes as well. And from here, the journey of rebuilding yourself reaches maturity, where peace is no longer a distant goal, but a way of living each day in presence. As this journey comes to a close, what remains is not a list to memorize, but 12 gentle invitations offered to you. Each principle does not ask you to become someone else. It simply invites you to return closer to the truth within yourself. It is an invitation to release the illusion of control so the mind can breathe. An invitation to sit with yourself instead of continuing to run away. An invitation to see pain as a teacher rather than an enemy. An invitation to simplify life so the spirit has more space. It is also an invitation to become the observer rather than the reactor, so emotions no longer take the wheel. An invitation to lay down the old self built from wounds, making room for a healthier sense of self. An invitation to learn how to walk alone without fear, without the need to prove anything. An invitation to live mindfully in even the smallest actions. An invitation to accept what cannot be changed and to act courageously on what can. An invitation to choose compassion for yourself instead of hurting yourself in silence. An invitation to break old mental loops and step into a new way of seeing. And finally, a very simple invitation to return to the breath where the present moment is always waiting. If there are times you feel broken, remember that you are not broken. You are becoming. If there are times you feel slower than others, remember that you are not slow. You are awakening at your own rhythm. There is no single path that is right for everyone. There is only the path of being honest with yourself. The strongest version of you is not born in noisy crowds or external praise. That version is forged in quiet moments no one else sees. In the moments you choose to return instead of escape. In the moments you choose to breathe instead of react. In the moments you treat yourself with kindness even when no one is watching. This journey does not end here. It continues each day through small choices. And every time you remember to return, to breathe, to listen, in that very moment, transformation begins again. Principle 12, returning to the breath, anchoring the mind in the present. When the cycles of thought have been seen and gradually loosened, the healing journey needs a concrete anchor to return to whenever the mind begins to sway. That anchor is not far away. According to the teachings of the Buddha, the breath is the simplest and most honest doorway back to yourself. The breath is always present in every moment of life. It does not belong to the past that has passed, nor to the future that has not yet arrived. The breath exists only in the present, where life is actually unfolding. When life becomes chaotic, the mind rarely stays in the present. It is often pulled back into the past, where mistakes, guilt, and regret replay again and again. Or it rushes into the future, where fears, worst-case scenarios, and anxieties that have not yet happened take over all attention. In both states, the body remains here, but the mind has traveled far away. Fatigue, tension, and confusion therefore continue to grow. The breath functions as a doorway back. By simply becoming aware of one inhalation and one exhalation, you step back into the present moment. In Buddhist teachings, the breath is not only a biological process. It is a bridge between body and mind, between physical life and spiritual depth. When you breathe with awareness, the body settles, the mind softens, and presence begins to return. The practice does not need to be complicated. Begin by inhaling deeply through the nose, feeling the air enter the chest and the abdomen. Gently hold for a brief moment without strain or force. Then exhale slowly through the mouth or nose, sensing release spread throughout the body. Let attention follow each phase of the breath, from its beginning to its end. Each cycle becomes a reminder that you are here, safe in this moment. When emotions rise strongly, another simple practice is to place a hand over the heart. This gesture sends a clear signal to the nervous system that you are caring for yourself. As you inhale, silently say, "I am here." As you exhale, quietly say, "I allow myself to let go." The breath then becomes a silent prayer, without words and without complicated belief, only sincere presence with yourself. Modern science also confirms the profound value of this practice. Slow and deep breathing reduces cortisol levels, the hormone associated with stress. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, helping the body shift from defense into recovery. With steady breathing, emotional tolerance increases. You are no longer swept away by feelings as quickly, and you gain more space to sense and choose how to respond. Conscious breathing also supports the immune system and improves mental clarity, allowing you to see situations with less fog. What matters is not practicing only when things feel calm. The breath must be used as an anchor during storms. At the beginning of a new day, just a few conscious breaths before getting out of bed can reset the energy for the entire day. Before sleep, Returning to the breath allows body and mind to settle together, inviting rest to arrive more naturally. And in the middle of stressful moments, a single deep breath can be enough to shift from reaction to presence. The journey of rebuilding yourself does not require you to be strong at all times or aware at every moment. There will be days when you forget and moments when you are pulled away. But the breath is always there, patiently waiting for you to return. It does not blame, demand, or judge. Each time you remember the breath, you give yourself a new chance to begin again. As all the principles gradually integrate into daily life, the breath becomes the thread that runs through everything. It keeps you anchored in the present when everything feels unstable. It reminds you that peace does not come from controlling life, but from returning to the moment you are living. And sometimes, to change an entire inner state, you do not need to do much at all. One conscious breath is enough for transformation to begin.